Hello there, and welcome to Gooner U, where there are no degrees because the learning never stops. I'm Dove, a TA here at Gooner U, and my friend Keith is our stalwart distinguished professor of Arsenal and football studies. Enter our classroom as we discuss the week's news involving Arsenal, Premier League, Champions League, and international football, all from the perspective of a couple of Americans. This week featured two cup matches. We had the first leg of the EFL Cup Semi-finals at home to Newcastle, and our FA Cup Round 3 match at home against Manchester United. Hello, Keith.
Hello, Dove. I don't know what it's like around you, but I have to say the weather here in Houston matches my mood. I'm just gonna... That's probably a little unfair. I'm probably a little more optimistic than I should be at this stage, but yeah, it was that kind of week.
Yeah, all in all, not too bad here. Chilly, but none of the precipitation, all the snow that's hitting a lot of the rest of the country that isn't used to it. We haven't gotten any of that. We just had a dusting this weekend, but
Yeah.
I
would say no snow here. A little rained a bit this morning on my way to and from the pub, but also Friday. No, Thursday afternoon it poured all day, all afternoon. It was kind of cold and 40s, windy, gray. A good January day.
So yesterday in our household, I found out that I have failed as a father.
Yeah, so what's going on there? What'd you do?
We are going to be on a trip at Disney World in a few weeks, and in the run-up to this, we've been watching every Star Wars movie. So my son had seen most of them. He hadn't seen like the couple Star Wars stories like Solo and Rogue One. He hadn't seen those before, and he didn't remember, especially the sequel trilogy, and remembered not liking them. So we watched The Rise of Skywalker yesterday, and we've finished every Star Wars movie, watching in timeline order this time. And I asked him, okay, so we've done all that. What is your favorite Star Wars movie now? And he tells me from within each trilogy that in the prequel trilogy, Episode 1 is his favorite. In the original trilogy, Return of the Jedi is his favorite. And in the sequel trilogy, Rise of Skywalker was his favorite. So, okay, interesting. So of those three, which is your favorite? And since I've told you already that I'm a failure as a father, I think you can probably imagine which of those three movies it was.
And I say this as someone who's willing to give a qualified defense of the Phantom Menace. But,
yes,
I mean,
well...
Look, we played United this week, so Bruno Fernandes is by definition the villain of the week, but man...
Well, the reason he picked Episode 1 as his favorite Star Wars movie is what really kills me. Like you said, you can defend The Phantom Menace along several different axes. There are things in its favor, and it may overall be the best of the prequels, given how the rest of those went. But the reason he loves Episode 1, this is even after... So let me just point out, we also watched all three Robot Chicken Star Wars episodes. Mm-hmm. And I noticed as we were watching these, he was not laughing at any of the Jar Jar Binks Ahmed Best bits, which had me in stitches, right? And I've seen this a few times before, but the Ahmed Best parts where he's just like Jar Jar cranked up to 11, like Reed wasn't laughing at those parts, which I didn't realize was a warning sign. Jar Jar is the reason that he loves Episode 1, and it is his favorite Star Wars movie. He can't get enough Jar Jar.
Okay, two things here. One, on that answer, somewhere George Lucas is saying, "I told you so."
Yeah, exactly.
Secondly, when you said failure as a father, I swear you were gonna say that Rise of Skywalker was his favorite, which would be a cause for some questions. But
yeah, I'll have to ask him which is his second, Jedi or Skywalker, but he did love Rise of Skywalker. Like he was really not too hot on Force Awakens or The Last Jedi, but Rise of Skywalker, he was into. So.
Oh dear. I will say this again. I do have time for Phantom Menace. I have some defenses of qualified support for the Phantom Menace, but so we're burying the lead a little bit here this week.
Yeah, let's talk about some other English productions.
Yeah, we are burying the lead a little bit this week. So we should talk. Obviously, I tend to watch these games live, except for Newcastle because I was in meetings all day Tuesday, so I had to watch that later knowing the result. But you have, as we record this on Sunday night as we typically do, you have just finished the Arsenal Manchester United FA Cup third round tie, which is a game that definitely can be described as on television. So we're going to go out of order a little bit. I know we usually do games in chronological order, but we're actually going to start because I want the raw, unfiltered Dove thoughts on Arsenal 1, Manchester United 1.
Yeah.
United advancing on penalties in the third round of the FA Cup.
So not only did I just finish watching, when you say just finished, like we had to delay recording because I didn't allow enough time for the extra time and then the penalties. So we had to delay recording by nearly an hour because I ran over not knowing to allow that much time for it. But yeah, it's very, very, very frustrating that it was ultimately decided by us missing 2 separate penalty kicks, or actually, more accurately, having 2 separate penalty kicks blocked.
Yeah.
That is very frustrating, in that we had them a man down for most of the match. And there was even a stretch in there where they were down 2 men because the one guy got injured sliding into what do they call that? The apron or something. So like play continued even though he was seeking medical attention. We actually had them down to 9 men and couldn't capitalize in that period. And I feel like overall it's emblematic of what has been wrong for us so far this season. Just everything that could have possibly gone wrong for us did, basically. Every shot that Kai Havertz took from within 2 yards of the goal went in an unexpected direction. The 2 brilliant headers that Rice could have almost made went straight into the keeper's arms. Like he aimed them like at the center of mass of the keeper. It was just, Gabriel got a decent shot off and it went just like, a foot wide of the post. Jesus ended up getting carted off in a stretcher.
Yeah,
literally.
That's not good.
No,
that one doesn't look good at all.
No, so it was a demoralizing defeat as much as anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, let me go to the what's the first stage, the denial phase. Technically, we drew this game. We didn't lose it, but yes, of course, we don't.
For all that gets us.
For all that gets us, we do not advance in the tournament. It'll be United who plays Leicester in the next round of the FA Cup, and not us. Which in the long term might not be a terrible thing for us to have fewer games on the schedules we'll talk about. But yeah, there was for a game where not a lot happened, a lot happened. I think it's fair to say.
Well, yeah, and throughout, I mean, especially at one particular point we'll get to, I mean, my mind was flashing to Pizzagate. It was like kind of those embers of the rivalry that's kind of lost its luster a little bit, kind of the flames fanned up a little bit, and there were some emotional moments in this match.
There were, although I'll say this, I mean, we talked about a little bit in advance of the Newcastle game and how Newcastle likes to play on sort of a more physical edge, and certainly United, I think, came into this game. I mean, look, the United team we saw today doesn't belong on the same field as some of the, like, as that United team from like 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. I mean, it's some ways it's shocking to see where they are as a club. Just given what they were. I mean, like, and I have expressed my antipathy for Manchester United in the past. And a lot of that is driven in a large part because they've just been really good. And it just, having to face them in those circumstances. And they're just not that team anymore in so many ways. I mean, in some ways, like, yeah, well, we can get into this in other contexts, but they're just, I don't know that we can say we deserved a better result because we were terrible. This was an awful game. And look, stinkers like this happen. The more you watch, the more you like, because we can think back to some games we've watched over the last now 2+ years, right? 2.5 years. There are some games that you're just, oh man, that was awesome. How great was that? And then there was, I think at some point, we're just standing there watching with the group and just thinking, can this just be over?
Yeah.
Like, I've already invested the time in here, so I'm not going to leave, but this is terrible. Like, but neither of these teams deserves anything from this game. And yeah, I think there's an element to this one as well of us. It feels like we do seem to fall in a lot of ways on the wrong end of so many, I don't want to say marginal decisions. I think it just, luck sort of feels like the wrong way to describe it.
Happenstance.
So many, happenstance. And honestly, I think the Newcastle game, which we'll get to later, I think sort of fits in this too in a lot of ways. But yeah, this one was extraordinarily frustrating. And I think honestly, it starts from the goal that should have been and wasn't. Martinelli, bounces in a ball and it's offside.
Right.
Now, we'll say this. Martinelli was clearly offside when the ball comes to him, except...
Well, not right, when the pass was made, right? When the last Arsenal player before him initiated a pass, yes, he was definitely offside, yes.
So the ball deflects off of Harry Maguire, but is ruled offside. So,
yes.
As you're so I know as I watched that live, I was convinced it was a goal. Even though it was obvious Martinelli was behind the defender, I saw that as a goal and was celebrating it. Of course, then it was pulled back. Sort of walk me through what are you thinking as you see that?
From more a place of ignorance of the rules, like I was like listening to what the commentators were saying, and the on-air commentators during the match commentating live were talking about, that hit off of him. I don't know. That seems like it should maybe have been onside. But of course, without VAR, it's whatever the ref sees or doesn't see, and the linesman, whatever they see or don't see as it transpires. So, we don't have an additional review of it after the fact. But then I was listening to them during the halftime show, and what they indicated the rule actually indicates, double indication there. What their commentary on the rule is that he needs to have control of it. That's what they were saying and because he stuck his leg out and it kind of bounced off it, but he never had, I think it was prevailing control or something. They used a phrase like that. The way it kind of just went sideways, he never controlled it. It just kind of bounced off of him. That's not enough to change it, even if VAR reviewed it.
So someone actually looked this up, and the word they saw in the rules in the laws of the game was about a deliberate attempt to play the ball. And if you watch, and it's Harry Maguire who does it, especially on the replays, he stuck out his foot. He sticks out his foot, and he kind of misplays it, and that's how it ends up with Martinelli.
Right.
So here's what I think would have happened even in a Premier League setting. I think the real problem is the linesman immediately flags it for offside. And I think one of the problems you run into is, so if you watch hockey, they'll have this phrase, intent to blow, which is not dirty, I promise. But the idea is almost that, or the idea you see in almost any sport where the whistle blowing is sort of the signal that the play is over. Whatever happens, the play is dead, even if the whistle shouldn't have gone. We talk about players being trained to play to the whistle. When they hear the whistle, they'll pull up and stop. And so I think, and I'd be interested to actually see a full wide-angle replay of this. If the referee raises his flag for offside, at that point, the play may well be dead. Now, having said that,
because some number of players are going to stop trying for the ball at that point, so whatever happens is invalid. That would make sense. If I don't remember whether that was the case, but yeah. Right.
Now, again, I don't know where that comes in relative vis-a-vis to the referee's whistle, because the whole point of the whistle is you don't have to see it, you can hear it, and you don't have to be looking, you can hear it from anywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, that should have been a goal. And honestly, I'm not gonna. Aside from my general season-long resolution of not talking about the officiating, I thought the officiating this week was largely fine. I have, you can complain. You can always complain about individual calls, and we'll talk about some of them in this game. But overall, I thought the officiating was fine.
Yeah.
It
was interesting. Like, I didn't notice any really, well, not at least against us, but like any egregious non-calls from the ref. But the number of calls was staggering. Like they mentioned, they threw up a graphic in the 57th minute, which was not too far into the second half already, that United had 15 fouls called against them to our 3. Which felt right.
I mean, honestly, the more shocking stat, I think we looked at halftime, was the possession was something like 60-40. And I remember people looking around and going, when the heck did
really?
they get 40% of possession?
Yeah, I didn't see that. That would have surprised me too. Yeah,
we dominated possession in a lot of ways, and in a lot of respects, I wouldn't say it was their strategy because I think that lends too much to it. But there was a lot. They fouled a lot, and I'm not. This isn't United's a dirty team or anything like that. I think they were fouling in large part because that was the thing to do, and in those circumstances, and some of them bothered me a little more than others. But overall, I mean, we certainly were not afraid to give out a little physical play too. But that Martinelli goal is frustrating for two parts. One, because it really should have been a goal. Maguire makes a play on the ball. That plays the ball onside. Martinelli finishes it. And you can be, and it's frustrating again, those thin margins, referee, the linesman puts up his flag and the whistle blows. Mm-hmm. I wonder, I think in the Premier League, we've talked about this, the referees are instructed, or the linesmen are instructed to keep the flag down. And how many times have we seen the play go on, even what appears to be a clear offside?
And and then they raise it after. Yeah.
And that's kind of the situation they're playing for, because it allows the VAR to go back in and say, actually, that was off. You're right, that was offside. Or, no, actually, you were right to keep that down. It's fine. So you allow the play to play out. Or, if the attacking player comes in and just pumps it, into the second row, okay.
It doesn't matter.
Right, but if there is a goal scored, you can go back and check and be sure that it should have been allowed or perhaps not. And this the second frustration, right? I mean, how many times have goals change games, and especially for us, an early goal would have made a huge difference in this game. Mm-hmm. And that's just another case where we just didn't get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I imagine the instruction to keep the flag down, that sounds like a fallout of the VAR system. And in this match, absent VAR, I can see why they probably would raise it right away. There isn't going to be a review. If you see it, you stop it then, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that's part of the instruction, too, because of the difference without having the VAR. That changes the way you as the linesman are interpreting or acting in what's happening.
Yeah. So that was really the only thing of note for the most part in the first half. I mean, I guess
Bruno Fernandes throwing his shoe.
Well, that was the second half, wasn't it?
No, that was.
Oh no, you're right. That was. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. He's not entirely wrong. You could have easily called a foul.
Yeah.
And that's the play where Jesus... It's not the play where Jesus gets hurt because he's getting treatment a little earlier in the game. But it looked to me like... And I say this in the sense that it's accidental. It looks to me like Fernandes sort of clips him with one of his legs when it's swinging back. Not on purpose, but I think he clips him a little bit. And that... I wonder if that was sort of the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back that ends up sending Jesus off.
Right.
On the one hand, God, I hate saying this, but I think Fernandes might have a point. I think there might have been a foul. It would have been justified to call the foul there. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, shut up. I don't want to hear it from all the players. I don't want to hear it from him. And the throwing the shoe was just so just you know what? That's what yellow cards are for, man. I don't want to hear it.
So a couple things on that. So first of all, yes, I got my son on your side as far as asking for Legos to be stepped on with this player. And boy, do we have Legos for him to step on in this house. But then when his gesturing and gesticulation after he got hit, it looked like he was pointing toward the 18-yard line. Like he was asking for a penalty, which as soon as you see the replay was very clear. No, the contact was before he got into the box.
I mean, part of it is it happened so fast. In some ways, I can sort of see from his perspective, like he's on the ground in the box. He must have been fouled in the box. It happens very quickly. He's right on the edge. You're right. The contact occurs outside the box. It would have been a dangerous free kick rather than a penalty. Right. And I can sort of see why he would be asking for a penalty. I like that part does it. It's just the whole like, as someone immediately just pulled out the old Austin Powers. Who throws a shoe?
Honestly, yes.
And it's just the perfect. It just, yeah. Again, and for all the players who I don't mind seeing, to me, that's the fact that Bruno Fernandes is the captain and the best player at Manchester United tells you everything about where United is.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, we said this a little bit, like, there were days, thinking in the early, like, when you started or in the years past, like, some days the best player on the field for Arsenal was Granit Xhaka. Now, we've said positive things about Granit Xhaka on this show. But the problem with Granit Xhaka being your best player is it means Granit Xhaka is your best player. The problem for Manchester United is some days Bruno Fernandes is their best player.
Mm-hmm.
And that says a lot about, again, where that club is compared to what they have been. But anyway, yeah, seeing him angry like that does bring a smile to my face. It does make the fact that he ultimately scored in the second half, just like of all the play, it had to be him.
I know. So what is the status of Marcus Rashford? Is he on the DL right now?
No, he is apparently on the outs with the I don't follow the club closely, but apparently his form has dropped off precipitously from even a year or two ago. Obviously, with a new manager, there's a lot of work within the club to sort of figure out who fits, who doesn't, who's going to play the way Amorim wants them to play.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of if you think back to, obviously you weren't quite watching them, but the Amazon season for Arsenal before you started, like questions like, obviously there's no comparison here in terms of skill level of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Like, yes, he's talented, but does he fit into what Arteta is trying to do and trying to build? And I think Rashford is kind of stuck in that. Like he may, for a lot of reasons, it could be skill level, it could be willingness to do what the manager wants, it could just be his ability to play the manager wants him to play.
Right.
He doesn't. It maybe just be a personality clash with him and the manager. He just doesn't quite fit what United is right now. And so, yeah, he's a bit on the outs with them. As someone who I don't follow obviously the day-to-day inner workings of Manchester United, so there may be other layers to that story. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of, yeah, you're right. I mean, you would think, given his record, but he hasn't been very good this season. He hasn't been very, it's been a while since he was actually that good. And right, it's easy to get sucked into, well, Marcus Rashford, I've heard of him. Not for this season, you haven't.
Yeah. Interesting. By the way, just a quick factoid. You mentioned Aubameyang. His name came up recently. I forget if it was on the Arscast or Handbrake Off, but they were talking about historical January transfers. So they mentioned Trossard, who I remembered coming on in a January, and I think Jorginho.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago, 2 seasons
right,
ago.
And then Aubameyang, I guess, also came on as a January transfer.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. It wound up being effectively a 3-player swap. Aubameyang came from Dortmund to us. We sent, who did we send away? Olivier Giroud. I forget where he wound up. And then that other club ended up sending a player to Dortmund. It was just kind of interesting.
Oh, weird. Interesting.
Swap. And Aubameyang did a lot of good things for the club, but I'll be honest, in a lot of ways, we all miss the meaty French forehead of Olivier Giroud, that handsome Frenchman that he was. Anyway, but yeah, it's I do think that's sort of the Rashford story. Yeah, I don't even know he was on the bench for them officially today. I didn't really check. United's roster is full of a lot of players who I sort of feel like, they paid a lot of money for a guy who isn't that good. But outside of a handful of them, like Fernandes or who's the other one who drove me nuts today, Lisandro Martinez. I'm just like those guys. But most of the rest of them are just kind of their interchangeable parts. They're not the same. Again, not United. But anyway.
So moving on to the second half, it was very early in the second half that Dalot got a yellow card for a pretty egregious slide tackle on Miles Lewis-Skelly, which, I note every yellow card that happens, and most of the time it doesn't end up mattering, but every now and then that first yellow card that you note ends up coming back with increased significance later on.
Yep.
So it was a few minutes after that Fernandes got lucky and managed to get a good opportunity and converted it. It was a nice shot. Nothing Raya could have done, given his positioning, like for the player who had the ball, not anticipating the cross, which is pretty much what you would do.
Yeah,
that was unfortunate.
And you saw, and again, Raya's not at fault here. You see the play, and we were watching. It was the gosh, I'm trying to remember it live because we haven't. Again, this all just happens. So there's not even highlights out available. Maybe at this point. I think it was I think it was Timber gets. No, it wouldn't have been Timber. Someone gets beat to the ball upfield, and then Gabriel sort of gets beat and sort of slips trying to pursue the guy, and then United's off on the counter, and then I think it's a 3-on-2.
I'm remembering. I think it was Miles Lewis Scully was the other defender who gave up the opportunity. Yeah,
Lewis Scully kind of gets out muscled on the wing. Gabriel misplays his attacker and kind of spins out a little bit, and all of a sudden you're going back the other way, and had to be Bruno. We're gonna move on before I say something I'm not allowed to say on this show.
So not too long after that, we had it was about 10 minutes or so. We had we had Saliba elbowed in the mouth by Højlund, bleeding. I think no foul called.
No foul called on that one.
Saliba bleeding all over his no more blood or whatever it's called jersey.
No more red.
No more red, right? So,
which by the way, listen, it's a worthy cause, and I'm glad Arsenal's a part of this sort of thing, and it's really important. We got to stop playing in those kits. One, they look terrible.
Bad luck.
I mean, like, you can't. I don't know who. I can't tell who the players are. I mean, they go in an American sports league. There were rules about visibility. Like, you would not be allowed to wear white numbers on a white shirt like that. That's not okay. So that's one problem. The second problem is we keep losing. We keep getting knocked out of the cup in those, and that has to stop.
Yeah, illegible and bad luck, not a good combination.
I mean, worst of it, we look like Spurs. It's you can't. I just can't anymore. I can't.
Now I can't unsee that.
I know. Anyway, yeah. Again, worthy cause. I hope Arsenal writes this foundation like a massive check. I'm sure they're doing a lot for it, but yeah, just the kits are. This is 3 years in a row we've worn them, and or maybe even before. We just keep losing at this round. Again, it's not really the kit's fault, but
at a certain point, though, it may be. Like, at a certain point, if it does play into the mentality of players who have lost in them over and over again, it can have an effect. I mean, it's not unreasonable, but
I've heard this a bunch in sports, and my favorite is Eli Manning, former New York Giants quarterback, who said it. But it's heard in a lot of cases. I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. Let's stop wearing the white shirts. I don't. It's weird. It's because it's connected to a charity. It feels weird to sort of say how bad they are, but like they don't look good. They just it's a worthy cause, and I'm glad we're a part of it. But surely there is something else we can do.
Yeah,
to connect ourselves. Wear the black ones. I don't care. Just the all white is just a mess.
Before we leave that topic, though, do you remember, are those kits available? Because I have a certain interested son who liked them. And as far as I remember you talked about before, I don't think you can buy them retail. I think they only give away like game-worn ones. They auction off for charity or something.
As I understand it, they are only available. The only ones that are made are the ones the players wear, and then they auction them off afterwards. They are not for sale.
Which seems like a wasted opportunity. I think if you have to imagine if they made them available for sale and like took their profit from it and gave that to the No More Red, you would think that would do well and generate money for that charity. But I guess who knows?
I mean, Dallow's yellow. United had a couple of those that were kind of borderline yellows for a while, so it was very good to see. I mean, it's a reckless challenge from Dallow. There's one United fan who is in the pub with us. I mean, he's a buddy of several people. Like he's a good guy. So like we're not gonna make too much. And he spent most of the game like just ripping on his own team because of where they've been this season. But yeah, that was. I mean, that second yellow was coming to somebody. Frankly, they could have given it to several United players could have been sent off for yellows or second yellows. But that was. I mean, it's just a reckless challenge. Like you can't do that. It's just a dumb.
Yeah, no, definitely. Part. Yeah. And, so they're down a man, and it was very, very quick. A couple minutes later that Gabriel actually scored a goal for us, with his feet, not his head. Impressive.
It's technically his. It does deflect off a defender. His
shot was. I don't know that I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah, his shot was on goal, so it's not an own goal, but definitely the deflection played a part in it. But yeah, Gabriel. I don't have a lot of great things to say about the way we played in this game, but I thought Gabriel was, I thought he did a lot of good things, and so I'm glad to see him rewarded with the goal in that regard.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was. I mean, we were sort of talking about this at halftime, right? What is the thing that needs to happen to get Arsenal in gear? Like you watch the game play out, and again, that first half was dreadful. It was just an awful game for everybody involved. United's not really going forward. They're mostly just trying to chop players down, in part because that's the only thing they can do. Arsenal looks so awkward in attack, so disjointed. It's so tough to push anything, so slow in developing. It was what do you need to do to get Arsenal in gear? And the end of it seemed to be was, we'll take a United player off the pitch. That seemed to be what got things going.
Well, yeah. I mean, and so we went from the goal to a few minutes later, the penalty call against Harry Maguire for, pretty clear-cut foul against Kai Havertz. Yeah. And that led to like a rumble on the pitch.
Yeah.
How many yellow cards ended up getting given out for that fracas?
I recall seeing, I want to say 3 or 4.
I think so. I ended up seeing a few minutes later, they put on screen that Gabriel and Havertz got yellow cards, and it must have been for some involvement there because I didn't see anything else happen in between.
I saw Havertz, I saw Maguire, one of the other United players, and there may have been another Arsenal player. Maybe it was Gabriel. I don't remember.
Yeah. And then we had another foul that probably would have been a red card if VAR were looking at things, where Ugarte headbutted Kai Havertz.
Yeah, and that whole little sequence there, I mean, that's one Ugarte probably should have been tossed for, and that's one VAR would have 100% seen.
Yeah, definitely.
I say 100%. Let me rephrase that. That would have been an opportunity for VAR to make a call. Now, obviously, we can be skeptical about the degree to which they would have made that decision in that context. I mean, I'll say this. Maguire was pretty heated about the penalty. I mean, I'll be honest. It was a soft one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, Havertz is clearly looking for it. But at the same time, like, Maguire catches a lot of heat because United spent a lot of money on him, and he's not that good. No, he's not garbage. He's not a terrible player, but he's definitely, again, there's the level United plays at, Harry Maguire, Bruno Fernandes, then the level they aspire to or should be, and neither of those players would be making the cut there. And he can be an awkward player at times. And I think in this case, Havertz is looking for the contact and definitely makes a meal out of it. But at the same time, Maguire sticks out his arm and like arm bars. Like, at a certain point, you that's not a play you can make and then suddenly go, "Oh, I didn't do anything." Yes, you did.
Well, and you wonder at a certain point if that's also the ref getting some control over the game too, because they had been so physical, fouling so much, where it's almost like a rotational yellow or something, where it's like, look, I've been calling this and you guys keep on doing it. Maybe you need something a little more severe. Would that ever factor in? Like, look, I'm going to call this, even though maybe in other circumstances I wouldn't have. Would that ever factor in, you think?
Well, it's always a dangerous thing to get into the mind of a Premier League referee. But I think because the penalty is involved, like that, we've talked about this, penalty is a steep decision because of the goal scoring opportunity it presents. I think you're more likely to see that kind of yellow card than you are to see that kind of penalty. Like, he gives the penalty there because he sees the contact and says that's a foul in the box. I don't think it's a yellow. I don't like, it's not, it is soft contact. I mean, it's not quite on par with the Saliba penalty that he gives up against Brighton last week. But it's definitely one of those where Like it's soft contact and he makes the most out of it, but at the same time, like he makes contact. Like you're allowing the referee to make a decision, and that's kind of where if you're Maguire, you kind of have to say like that's not. I put myself in a position where that could have happened.
Right. Yeah.
The unfortunate thing, of course, and look, their keeper up until this point. I was about to ask somebody, did he win some sort of contest to be the keeper for United? Because he was, I have to say, taking free kicks, he was awful. Like, he put just about all of them. I don't know how you do that.
I know.
I know. It was terrible.
My son was joking at various points in the game, just like saying, just score a goal. It's not that hard. I could score a goal. I was like, no, not exactly. But what I will say for him is he is quite possibly better at punting than their keeper is.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, in that instance, and in one or two times late in the game, he came up with saves. And in this one, I mean, Odegaard, it's not a great penalty from Odegaard. Let's be clear.
No.
Fair play to the keeper for going the right direction, getting his hand on it.
It wasn't awful from Odegaard. I would say his penalty was better than the Havertz one that ended up getting blocked later.
Boy, that is the tallest building in Wichita, man. Come on, like Odegaard is not. It's not a great penalty from Odegaard, but again, the keeper goes the right way. He gets a hand on it, and it's a save, and that's unfortunate for us. But
so, what about it with Odegaard's are you talking about? Because it looked passable to me. It wasn't all the way in the corner. It left a little bit of a margin, but I think the keeper pretty much made it all the way to the post. It seemed like
he did, but part of that's on Odegaard. He got to hit that harder.
Right. Like, and with really, Havertz, that's what I definitely noticed is he could have hit that one a lot harder.
Like what I was always told. Now, granted, this is rec soccer, so take it as much as you want. But what I was always told is that penalties, you want to place it in the corners because that's the farthest away from the keeper, of course.
Sure.
And to me, the better option for the corner. I mean, again, it sort of depends. Top corner, bottom corner. In some ways, the top is better because it's so hard to get all the way up there. On the other hand, the bottom is in some ways tougher because for the keeper to get all the way down, like we've talked about, to go all the way down like that is in some ways tougher. I think Odegaard just needs to hit that harder. That to me is the big problem. We sort of talked about this. I mean, the taking a penalty is such an advantage for the attacking player that when he doesn't score, you almost have to say, short of the kind of save we saw the keeper make a little bit later, where he pushes the ball over the crossbar from Rice. Short of that, or like when a couple of the full extension ones we've seen. Short of that, I mean, if the keeper makes a save, it's mostly because he guessed right and the kick wasn't poor, or the kick was poor. Like to me, that's on the shooter. You got it. Odegaard's have to take a better shot than that.
Yeah. All right. Well, so after that, we had Declan Rice come on for Mikel Merino, and I learned about my son's theory of substitutions, which is Merino was a rotten banana, and so we had to bring on a fresh banana, which Rice is. Take it for what it is.
That's we talked about why do you make substitutions? One of the reasons is players are tired; they're not doing well. Merino had. The word that was used today was Merino was kind of anonymous. I didn't really notice him at all today. Which,
to be fair, they were all kind of anonymous because none of them had jersey numbers or names on their shirts.
Yeah, but some players stood out a little more, and Merino was not among them. Now, granted, some of them stood out for bad reasons. Kai Havertz. Look, I've been on record here. I like Kai Havertz. I think he does a lot of things well. I think he does well to get himself into those. I mean, think about where we were at the beginning part of last season, right? Why doesn't Havertz bury these chances that he's always getting himself into? The fact he's getting himself into those chances is a good sign. But he's got to bury them. And we haven't talked about Newcastle yet. We're running way long on this one. We haven't talked about Newcastle yet. But yeah, he's got to, that's Havertz is not a center forward. We play him in that position, but he's not really a center forward. And this week, forget today, this week, I think is really an indication of that. No, he's a confidence player. He's going to get on heaters, and there may be some point like in, I don't know, March where he bangs in 4 goals in 3 games, and we're singing the Havertz song again. But yeah, this week and then today especially, man. Ooh, it's not good. And that's before we get into the penalty that he missed.
Well, right, exactly. No, he blew like 2 chances inside the 6-yard box, which he really shouldn't have. Those each could have independently been goals, and he just blew it.
Yeah. I mean, we had a couple of chances there, and then you get to extra time. I mean, I don't know. This was a tough one.
Yeah.
Extra time, kind of dire. We look exhausted. The team, the players, everyone looks exhausted. We're kind of running out of bodies.
Before we leave regular time, let me just correct myself. Earlier at the very beginning of the talk about this match, I mentioned a shot that was a rolling shot from outside the 18-yard box that just went wide. I said Gabriel. That was actually Timber. So I just want to get that out there. But yeah, the extra time, I mean, as much or as little as happened during the first half, probably even less happened during extra time. I mean, it was really a non-event.
Yeah. This whole game was something of a non-event, which is weird because we now spent like 45 minutes talking about it. But yeah,
I mean, we did get to see Trossard kind of caught in the back of the net like a fly caught in a spider's web. Yeah. That was something.
And the ball caught in the back of the net. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I guess, between extra time and the penalty shootout, there isn't much to say other than Havertz has a bad one, it gets blocked, and they convert. I mean, credit to them, they converted all their penalties, and we're out of the cup.
Yeah, basically.
Well, no, we're out of the cup.
That's basically all there is left to say about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean, when did last season turn around, right? Was the trip to Dubai.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't get that this year because we're playing 2 games a week through the beginning of February.
Yeah.
Some of this is, what is it, coping? Is that one of the stages of grief? Some of this is going to be coping a little bit, which is to say, look, in the end, it probably doesn't hurt that we don't have the extra games anymore. But at the same time, like, we look exhausted mentally, especially, but also physically. The injuries are really piling up in a lot of ways, and I don't know. Some of the post-game commentary. I mean, granted, any pre or post, any commentary from United fans tends up being very annoying. Oh yeah, the referees were against us. Thanks. Oh yeah, that's what it feels like. I don't want to hear that, but it just this was frustrating. I don't know. I guess, and we'll talk about the Newcastle game in just a moment, but it feels like a game where we had opportunities to put the game away, we didn't, and we got punished for it. In the last couple of weeks, we've talked about those games and sort of said, man, it feels like we deserve better. It's hard to say we deserve better from this game. This was an ugly game. It's credit to United, I guess, for taking the opportunity they needed and moving on. But it's just, from an Arsenal perspective, this is a game you almost want to just. I'm torn between I want to flush this game entirely and just almost pretend it didn't happen, and then also I kind of want to want to force the players to watch it Clockwork Orange style and say get mad about this. We're better than this garbage. This was not good, and you're all better than this.
Well, we do have a history on this show of ignoring the existence of certain cup matches when we get eliminated in our first showing.
To be fair, ESPN also ignored that game, so I don't feel bad about
true.
it.
The world ignored it along with us. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's frustrating. I don't like being out of the cup like this. I don't like losing. Do you want which competition do you want Arsenal to win? Yes, all of them. But at the same time, the silver lining may be we can get a break somewhere in here. Although, frankly, as we'll talk about in a second, Carabao Cup break might be coming too. So I don't know about that.
We may get more of a break than we intended.
Although we say that, I mean, there's at most 2 more Carabao Cup games left. The second leg of the semi-final, and then the final, which is the end of February. But still,
that's true. Not much
Still,
of a break.
yeah.
Before we leave this and head over to the Newcastle match, one question I did want to ask you was, so Dallo got a red card.
Mm-hmm.
I know that if it's in the Champions League, that doesn't cross over into English football, that and vice versa. But given that this is an FA match, and now I wanted to know either way, so whether Manchester United advanced or didn't, what would happen either way with the red card suspension for the following match? So given that they stayed in, is he suspended from the next FA Cup match, or is it just his next match under the FA, which would be presumably a Premier League match?
Right. It's a match under the auspices of the Football Association. Total. Okay. So he is suspended. I think I saw they're playing Southampton next, so he's suspended for the next Premier League game.
Okay. And so then that would be the case even if they got eliminated. Okay.
Right. He's simply suspended for the next game in that context. I think if he had been, now I say that, and I wonder if he had been say picked up a second yellow, say in the cup final, I wonder. I think at that point those might be erased because of the off season. So he would.
They don't roll over to the next season.
I don't believe that's the case.
Oh, interesting.
Now I'd have to look at that and see.
Yeah.
Because there are certain points we talk about competitions where cards are wiped away. But I think I that might be different. But in this case, because we're in the midst of the season, he picks up he gets the red here. He'll be out for their next game. I was going to say in England, but theoretically your European game could be England, but under the auspices of the FA, which in this case would be their Premier League game.
Yep.
I guess midweek. I assume they have a game midweek. We do.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Yeah, probably. So Newcastle. So this match happened before the last one we talked about, which we said was a break from our typical format. This was on January 7th, a midweek match on a Tuesday. I can't remember the last time we had a match on a Tuesday so early in the week. Usually it's like Wednesday, maybe a Thursday, but so this was the first leg of the semifinal in the Carabao Cup. We'd been doing pretty well so far in the Carabao Cup, and then we played Newcastle, and it was another one of those matches where we just had a bunch of chances that just would bounce off the metal, or I guess the wood is what they usually say, even though it's actually metal these days, but bounced off the woodwork or whatever happened and just couldn't convert anything.
Yeah, I mean, again, if I'm looking at this one, I point to a chance from Martinelli early that it breaks in and just cracks it off the post. I mean, couple of inches and it's a huge goal. There were a couple of times in this game where we had opportunities. I mean, I know we're going to get a lot of criticism for our lack of finishing and all of that. I mean, I thought honestly, especially in the first half, I thought we played fairly well. That's what the frustrating part to me is walking out of this game. Now, granted, I watched this game over the weekend. I think I watched the first half on Friday, second half on Saturday, kind of thing on replay because I was busy during the week, so I didn't see this one live. So I knew kind of what had happened as I'm sitting watching it. And I thought especially in the first half, and kind of in the second half too, I thought we played fairly well overall. But again, Martinelli, Havertz, a couple other players don't quite finish your chances. And in this case, and we talked about this, Newcastle's been playing fairly well recently. Alexander Isak has been a very good has been a big reason for their recent run of success. On the other hand, they said this was their first win at the Emirates. Didn't they say since 2010?
Something like that. A long time.
Right. I mean, again, and look, I'm on record here saying Newcastle was the team I would have preferred, and I gave my reasons, which had nothing to do with Newcastle sucks. They don't. But we said that they've been playing really well coming into this, but they've struggled at the Emirates really, I guess since the last decade and a half. It's been a while. But the Alexander Isak's been on a heater, and the team's been playing well, and he got a couple of he had one good finish and then one that set up another shot that set up Gordon's second goal, and this one. But again, overall, I thought we played pretty well in terms of generating chances. I mean, especially because it's January. so much of the conversation we're seeing at this point in the season revolves around, are we going to bring in somebody to supplement our attack? And Arteta sort of made this comment, and I know I've said this a little more deliberately. Now, granted, he has a lot more say on the matter than I do, being the manager. I'm just me. But I do feel like I just don't know that there's a really good option to bring in. Now, having said that, with Jesus going out, we're really thin on the front line right now. And it sounds like Jesus' injury, I mean, from the looks of it, it did not look good.
A stretcher is never a good omen.
Yeah, we know Wanyeri is a couple of weeks at least. Saka's weeks at least. My fear about a January edition is you're bringing in a guy who's going to essentially play for a month and then sit on the bench when everybody gets healthy. But now we could be looking at a couple of months. And frankly, without him, we just might not have enough players on that forward line. At a certain point, yeah, it becomes kind of a necessity. I mean, I think we're going to see... I mean, right now I'm trying to think of it. Martinelli, Trossard, Havertz, Raheem Sterling.
Right, we had him come back today, yeah.
I thought he was okay against United. Yeah. I mean, maybe
as good as we've seen him so far. Yeah,
yeah, but I mean, at some point, and Arteta's kind of talked about this because of the way the problem with the injuries is more so how they're concentrated in particular parts of the roster. And
right.
the problem, you reach the point where this was a comment he made, you can't plan rotation in the sense that, we'll play these guys here in midweek and these guys here on the weekend. You can't do that because the roster is so thin. And so in the end, you really have to take each game sort of game by game and sort of figure out who you're using. I mean, I'll say here's some good credit to Miles Lewis-Skelly, who's been able to come in and been a really good addition here at here at the left back position. But you look at the bench we've had in this game and then the United game even today, it's just too many youth players at this stage of the season. We're feeling thin, and that adds, I think, to the mental exhaustion we're feeling. And again, a Newcastle game where we played pretty well. I thought we were really good, especially in the first half, up until their first goal, and even in large parts of the second half. Now, granted, in the second half, Newcastle's up 1-0, 2-0, sits back, plays defense, kind of invites the pressure. Yeah, I don't know. I think they really need, more than anything else, what the team really needs is a break. And they're just not going to get one. So, got to kind of dig deep a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating. Like you said, my summary of the match was, I imagine we beat them handily in XG. We had so many chances and we just didn't convert one of them. It was frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, and this is a criticism we hear of that, and it's a fair criticism. All statistics only tell part of the story, reveal some things and they conceal others. One of the things XG can be, I hate to say manipulated, because that's not quite right. But one of the things XG can be manipulated in the sense that if you take a lot of shots, your XG will be really high.
Right.
Even if all you're doing is accumulating a lot of really mediocre or bad opportunities.
Right.
I think that plays a part of why our XG tends to be so high.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's entirely unfair. I think in a lot of ways it's just the finishing. We've created some really good and dangerous chances, and then just
right.
Sometimes because the margins are so thin, and sometimes because Kai Havertz isn't a striker. We're not getting the finishes we want to get. And in a lot of games, we can get away with being that wasteful, or we're kind of reaching the point in the season where we're being wasteful with that, and we just aren't converting anything. And as a result, one break on the counter or a good striker like Isak or a good break like United had today can kind of do us in, or those marginal plays where Martinelli hits the post or Martinelli is called offside when he probably shouldn't have been.
Mm-hmm.
And there you are. And that's, it's, I understand the desire to find an offensive player. I understand the desire to find a striker. I just wonder, from a perspective of the fan base, I don't want to get so wrapped up in finding an attacking player, which is going to be difficult to do. The kind of attacking player we can literally just plug into the lineup as is.
Mm-hmm.
I just worry that that's not going to happen, and then you sort of lose, people lose confidence in that, and I just don't know that that's fair to the team and the way they're playing, even accounting for the fact that, yes, they need to do a better job converting their chances. I mean, there is a lot of talk going, has Arteta reached his level? Can he actually win a trophy with this guy? Is it stop it, whatever. Again, think about the last calendar year we just had, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
That was bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
We were the best team in England for 2024. Like, if you take our record for the back half of last season and the first half of this season, we were the best team of England, and I don't think it's really close.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
there's a frustration that comes in by not turning all of that success into the trophy.
Right.
Because there's a mix. On the one hand, you don't want to define your entire run simply by whether or not did you win a trophy. Because then it turns into, Arsenal kind of sucks. We do not suck. This team does not suck. But at the same time, the trophy is not the friends we made along the way. The trophy is the trophy, and right now we're in trouble in the Carabao Cup. We're out of the FA Cup. I mean, yes, we have a long way to go in the Champions League, and that's one where it's weird to say, honestly, the Champions League is where I feel the most confident. We got a deficit overturn in the Premier League, and I think we can. We got to start playing better, and boy, we do not have 2 easy games coming up for us this week. And I don't, this would be now, you'd be going into your 3rd season of being a very, very good team and having nothing tangible to show for it. And that's frustrating.
Yeah. No, I agree. But hopefully, I mean, as you pointed out actually more in a short that we recorded last week than we did on the show proper. But at this point last season, we were actually arguably in worse shape than we are now. We were only number 3, I think, on the table. And we had Manchester City and Liverpool ahead of us. Liverpool were sitting in number 1 at this time of last season also. Like, the Premier League, if we do start a run of wins like we had this time last year, and Liverpool falters at least, a few matches, it's not out of the question. Like, I was buoyed by your take on that last week, as I hope our viewers and listeners were. But so yeah, definitely FA Cup is out of the running now. But, Carabao Cup, I think the best we can hope for is to win the semi-final on penalties against Newcastle. I think it's reaching to hope for a 3-goal margin against them. We've done it before, but at home, I think, right?
So as I understand it, and we'll talk about more when we get closer to the second leg, luckily for that, isn't until the beginning of February. So we have like half a month, almost a month to get ready for that. Away goals is not the tiebreaker. So we have to win by 2, and we're in good shape there. Just win by 2 at St. James's, where we've struggled over the last however many years. It's fine. It's easy. So we'd have to win by 2 goals, but also we would have, if we did win by 2, we then have extra time and penalties.
Right.
So potentially there's a lot of ways to go. The obvious answer is just win by 3 and don't worry about it. Obviously, of course. Why didn't we think of that? But yeah, the other side to that is, if I can be my own devil's advocate, part of overturning the deficit we had last year was by dropping points in 2 games in the entirety of the 20, from January to May in the Premier League. Mm-hmm. And that's just not realistic to ask for.
Especially not with our roster situation this season, yeah.
And not the way we've been playing. And again, that sets up, we've got 2 fairly difficult games coming up this week. And we're sitting on, again, 2 games a week, 2 games a week, 2 games a week, and a roster that's clearly a little stretched, both physically and mentally. And this is the dog days part of the season. In baseball, they like the month of August is called the dog days because it's summer, it's hot, but you're after the All-Star break, which is a cool thing, and you haven't reached the pennant races in September. You're just kind of this stretch where you're just kind of just that grind, and this is where a lot of teams separate themselves. This is kind of that one of those stretches where not so much that we'll separate ourselves or that teams could separate themselves, but we've got to kind of grind through it. And we talked about with the Brighton game. We were trying to grind that one out, and we just came up a little bit short. We got 2 league games this week, and they're going to be grinds, and we have to kind of it's physical, yes, but it's mental too. I think this team. At this point, I feel like they really need something to go well. And if something can go well for them, I think we'll see, and really go well. We talked about sort of the bad luck they've been facing. You get a few moments of good luck, really good luck.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you start to see things turn around a bit, but it's going to be something they have to accomplish. So we'll see.
Yeah, so in this week, the way this week is gone, are we still picking a player of the week?
I can. Again, as frustrating as I am with the United game and how bad we played, I actually thought we played fairly well in the Newcastle game. Again,
yeah, I think my feelings on it are being heavily colored by what I just sat through. But yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I kind of want to. I'm not going to highlight. Well, I'll highlight the 2 players. So if I'm picking a player for Player of the Week, I think the guy I saw the most out of this week was Declan Rice. I thought he was lively and good in the Newcastle game. Yeah, you'd like some better for some of his chances, and I thought he was a real spark for us coming in for the United game. And then I'd also say a shout out to Gabriel, who's been solid in the back. I mean, Saliba's been fine too, but he's had a few iffy moments there. Here and there, but I think Gabriel's been put. But I'm going to say player this week. I'm going to say Declan Rice. I think he's been really solid in the Newcastle game, and I thought he was really lively and was a real spark against United today.
Yeah, no, I see that. That's a good choice. I struggle to think of someone with these 2 performances. We had. I guess what I fall back on is who was the most dangerous, who did I like what I was seeing, who looked like they were in good form, even though it didn't ultimately result in as much as we would have liked from them. I guess that person for me this week would be Gabriel Martinelli. I feel like he's been in better form than in the past. He's had a bunch of dangerous chances. He didn't quite convert them, but we haven't seen even that much from him in a while. And I'm hoping that this is the beginning of him starting to heat up and maybe he does start scoring more for us. And like we said, we need someone to, maybe that can be him. So it's not a strong pick, but I feel like given the way this week went, that's who I would say.
Let's put it this way. I think we're a couple of inches from Martinelli being a clear choice for Player of the Week. I don't think it's an unfair thing to say. Yeah. Although we could also say the same thing about Kai Havertz, but because of those inches, yikes.
And especially with Kai Havertz, I could say that more about the second match. The Newcastle match, he didn't really do much for me, whereas in Martinelli's case, I kind of saw some good things from him in both. So that factored in. So what is coming up for this week?
Well, I mentioned it because we are, it's going to be a tough one. Wednesday, we have a North London derby against Spurs. That'll be on Peacock, which I don't love the North London derby on a Wednesday. I mean, it just feels so anticlimactic. That should be a weekend game. But anyway, that's on Wednesday. Then Saturday.
We played City on a Wednesday too, right?
I know. That was last season, I think. This year we didn't.
No,
it was on a weekend.
No, it was in the fall. It was in the fall, I think, wasn't it? I think it was this fall. This past fall.
Watching that one because that was the whole red card and.
Okay, I'm thinking of a different one then. Yeah.
And then Saturday on NBC, because we're in the middle of the day game, we'll play Aston Villa. That's 2 tough games. Luckily, both of them are at home. We've got a nice stretch here. We had Newcastle United, then we have Spurs and Villa, and I think after that we have. Hold on, I just got to pull up an Arsenal schedule. No, that's it. Then we have midweek next week. Our last home Champions League group stage or league phase game. 5 straight home games. Unfortunately, we have a loss and a draw to show for it at this point. So. Spurs and Villa, time to kick on and start turning those into 3 points.
Yeah, and real-time follow-up, I confirmed, yes, that City match was on a Sunday. You were correct. I don't know which match I'm remembering. We had another really high-profile match that was midweek this season. I thought it was that one. I'm remembering wrong. But anyways, thanks for joining us at Gooner U. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also listen to our show on Apple, Spotify, and some other places. If you're only listening, try watching us on YouTube with a link in the show notes. Your homework for today is to hit the like button on one of our videos. We record the show using Zencaster. If you'd like to try it out, you can support Gooner U by signing up using the link in the description, which also has links to everything we talked about and our social pages. Again, my name is Dove, and you can find me on Twitter at DoveFrankel. With me, as always, is Keith, and you can find him in a pub watching Arsenal matches.
Rest up, you Gunners.